The idea of job security is outdated as a landline. If you haven't been in a search for a while, it's probable you will at some point, by choice or not. Most executives admit to staying way too long or sense what's coming and justify staying anyway. There's another reason. The faulty belief that navigating to what's next will inevitably be worse and has to suck. Screw that. Lauren Greif has spent a lifetime in corporate and executive search, calling bullshit on stale career advice that most still use. This is Career Blast in a Half, the career podcast for executives ready to cut past outdated career advice to fuel your outcomes now. So let's go.
So let's be honest. When you hear the word happiness expert, right? I mean, don't you get all like fluffy and feeling like those nice little cliches? Oh, I'm a happiness expert. And then you're asking yourself, like, what does this have to do with today's show? And I'm going to tell you right now, because our guest today, Jessica Weiss, and if you're not following Jessica right now, is a bona fide happiness expert. And not only is she a happiness expert, but she has backed all of her happiness data with some serious science. And her new book is coming out 11/11. Write that down, and you'll have the link below to pre-order. So 11/11, if you're super woo-woo, you know that's a really, really powerful number. But Jessica is the last thing from fluffy. I could promise you that. And from what I know, because I've known Jessica quite a long time, and she is also a dear and treasured friend of mine, she fell into happiness by accident. I want to tell you that from what I know, she wasn't feeling so happy in her happiness work when she discovered all of this. And her book is called Happiness Works: The Science of Thriving at Work. So, Jessica, I gotta just like ask you right off the bat. Tell us when you realized that here you were in this amazing corporate setting. I mean, we're talking like Coca-Cola, big Fortune 500 companies, like the best of the best, gone to the best schools, did all the things. And when the epiphany came up that, oh my God, like I did all the things, and isn't that supposed to have this, equal sign that says happiness?
Yeah, exactly. Like, isn't there a formula and didn't I hit it? And when that occurred to me, I was like, okay, so this is not a question of checking boxes and doing all the right things. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, it's a little bit harder, but it's all within you. Like, it's all within your control. And that is my favorite part of writing this book, of doing this kind of work, is this idea that happiness at work is absolutely possible for everybody. And it's not something that's out there, and it's not about looking for it. It's about things that we can do internally to control it. And to me, that is a beautiful thing, because if I can exert control over my life, then I feel like I actually have a fighting chance, right? If I can do the right things, then I can actually start to feel what that happiness is. And it's not a formula, and it's not the right job, and it's not a salary, and it's not a promotion, and it's not a title. It's a bunch of other stuff.
And so that's what we're going to get into. So thanks for the launch pad. And so since you have studied happiness across all industries, I mean, you name it, I'm really curious what your data says about what separates the happiest professionals versus everyone else.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting, like the piece of research that stands out for me here, is when you look at people in the exact same jobs and they have different levels of satisfaction. That is what is super interesting. That is when you realize it is not about the job, it is about the person, and it is about the person with the skills and the mindset to move forward. So what I boiled sort of that framework down to in Happiness Works was 5 key elements. And these 5 key elements keep coming up time and time again when you talk to people who are happy and satisfied and engaged and loving their work. And what those 5 people all have in common, whether they recognize it or not, is they have wonderful, deep work relationships relationships. They genuinely enjoy the people that they work with. They have a resilient attitude, right? Things go wrong and they're able to bounce back and they know the tools and the skills to do that. They have a realistic, optimistic mindset, which I love, right? Because I am all for being optimistic, but please, God, do not tell me, don't worry, it's all going to work out. Like, no, I need to know. But these folks have a realistic, optimistic mindset. They also understand this notion of progress. So it's not about promotions, it's about personal progress and what that looks like. And the last one is a buzzword pretty much right now in corporate America, but I think it's something that really resonates deeply with people, whether it's at work or not at work. And it's this idea that you go to work and it's an environment filled with trust. So whether you trust the people, whether you trust the processes, whether you trust your CEO, whatever it is, you go to work and you feel that you're in a trusting environment. So to a long story short, the people who flourish rather than flounder are the people who have those 5 characteristics in their work, no matter if they are building cars or they're an entrepreneur. It's across the board.
I want you to talk about this thing because you dropped it, but I also, you talk about positivity and some people get like really ticked off with this whole idea about toxic positivity. And so what's the difference between being optimistic and also being realistic, which you talked about, and also being able to vacillate between one and the other, whether you're a leader, an individual contributor, or otherwise, because sometimes we're in those work environments and what happens? You hear the go fight win speech and everybody's just supposed to feel it in concert with being realistic, which I also want to add in includes some level of trust and transparency. So how do you deliver the shit that's really going on, whether it's internal to the company or outside to the company, and you are weighing those two things, optimistic and realistic?
Yeah, I think that it's actually not as tough as people want to make it out to be. I think that this notion of toxic positivity is needs to be thrown in the garbage, right? It's the most inauthentic, non-genuine, waste of breath nonsense, right? It's to me, I put toxic positivity with self-care because when I start to hear self-care and I hear to me it's all kind of rolled up into one. So what I like to talk about when I talk about optimism is it's a realistic optimism, right? It's a strategic optimism. And what that means is you acknowledge the problem, right? You say, yes, something is wrong here, and you talk about it, but you are open to solutions, right? So if you think of it almost as peripheral vision, it's like or even like a camera, right? You're pulling open the lens. That's really the way that I like to look at optimism. So you acknowledge the problem, but you know that there are solutions. And I tell a story in the book that everybody knows because it's a great one from Apollo 13 where everything is going wrong. The shit has hit the fan. NASA needs, if NASA doesn't solve it, right, the astronauts are going to die. And the NASA director, I think his name is Gene Kranz, said, we have no possibility of failure. And that is the level of optimism that I love, right? It's like failure is not an option. Okay, that is a place that's a positivity place I can live in because I'm acknowledging that stuff is going bad. I'm acknowledging that this is going to be hard, but I'm also saying we're going to do this. It's possible and we're going to solve it.
I am so glad that you are here. We're, in a time right now, it's fourth quarter. Many people are going to, encounter layoffs. It's inevitable. We also know that, today's job search is not necessarily like a joyride, right? And so I love how you call out, thank you so much, this dream job fallacy. I never use it in my copy. I don't talk about it. I don't believe in it either. But what does your research really point to about why changing jobs doesn't change the quotient of happiness in your life?
Yeah. It's funny. Someone just said to me the other day, because I was talking about this dream job thing, and I was like, listen, unfortunately, dream jobs just don't exist. They just don't exist. And they were like, really? They don't exist? And I'm like, now here's the difference. You're not going to find your dream job, but you're going to create your dream job, right? So that's the thing. It's up to you to drive it. So the biggest fallacy I would say around this dream job is is looking for it externally, is waiting for it to come, and in particular for people who are looking for jobs, to constantly be searching for it, to always be imagining that the grass is greener. That's not the way a dream job is ever going to work. A dream job works when you take yourself exactly where you are and you create the job that is your dream job, because everybody has a different definition of a dream job. And I will go back to, this will be me on a repeating record, right? But I will say it's about work relationships. It's about building resilience. It's about finding work that you love and building that into your day every single day. It's not waiting for the dream job. It's not waiting for the dream project. It's saying like, oh, you know what? I love doing presentations. Therefore, it's doing more presentations, right? So it's really about this idea that, and this goes back to the idea of happiness, period. It's not something that's somewhere out there. It's here. And you have to create it and you have to build it. So there's a little bit of responsibility, right? It's not about like just happening upon it, but it's something that's possible, but needs to be created from yourself.
And so in today's ever-changing landscape and demands, and now we're going back to the office, and, I was happier when I was working, at home, and now I have this mandate, and, my boss is now it's an optics game. I have to, be in front of people, and, I'm an introvert, not really, but, here I am in this situation. How do you reconcile that? How do you find happiness when you already are put into a situation whereby a lot of the things that started to drive that happiness, trust in the environment or with the amount of exposure that you have is now no longer there?
Well, okay. So this idea that we're being forced back to work, I feel like gets a little bit of a bad rap. I'm not entirely against it. I think that there's real value to everybody coming back to the office. I think that where the essence of that conversation really lies is in the lack of control. It's you're being forced back to the office, right? So to me, this is a little bit of a mindset shift, that let me look at kind of what's great about going back to the office, because truly there are things that are great about going back to the office. The first one is connection with human beings. I think that we all forget that while we love working in our like pajamas from the waist down, and I am guilty of it just as much as everybody else, right? I think that when you actually go back into an office and you interact with human beings and you have friendships and you have conversations and you have like serendipitous things that happen, you forget how wonderful that is. So the first thing I would say is, instead of taking this tact of I'm being forced to do something that I don't want to do, I think it's really more about, okay, how am I going to find the great things about this? And it's similar to what I was just saying about the dream job thing, right? So for me, the first one is around this idea of being able to connect with other human beings. And then I also think that there's something really wonderful about building trust with people that you see every day. And what starts to happen then is creativity starts to flourish and innovation starts to come. So many great things happen when we get out of our pajamas. I can't begin to tell you. So while I'm against this notion of forcing people to do things, that doesn't sit right with me. I think there's probably a better way that we can deliver that message. I'm not really against the return to office thing.
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed, clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then. I want to ask you this important question because I know you, and I know your belief system around friends and working, and like am all for the swag that says, friends are magic, because I'm telling you, I'd be wearing that t-shirt every single day. I would, because it's true. But how do you know that you're going to have friends when you're in the middle of a job search and you're meeting people? And, let's be honest, you're on high alert. You're doing your best to align with company culture, to make sure that you're telling your sticky stories, to do all the things that are identifying that. And so the promise of having these workplace relationships when you're interviewing is maybe a little a little lofty or far out, because even though what you say is I 100% agree with, people don't necessarily go to a specific job to make friends,
Of
right?
course, of course, and I totally agree with that, and I think that, maybe in the interview process, the question around workplace friendships is not gonna be first and foremost, but what is going to be first and foremost is this idea of, cultural alignment, right? Can you see yourself fitting in with these people? Are these people that you would wanna spend time with, right? Let's not go so far, and I also say, let's be clear, I'm not saying that once you get to work, you're gonna have, like, 10 friends at work. I'm talking 1 friend, right? 1 friend, and I am of the belief that this is coming from somebody who does not have, nor does she believe in loads of friends, but I do think that we can all find 1 friend no matter where we are. No matter where we are. So I wouldn't concern myself with workplace friendships in that interviewing stage, but it's almost like it's like a pre-strategy to workplace friendships. So it's this idea of, can I fit in with these people? Do I feel comfortable? Are these people that I could see myself working with every day? And I think that those red flags become very apparent in the interview process, just from asking really simple questions, right? And it's almost the red flag almost appears when you don't expect it, right? So they're telling you a story and then they'll say something, you'll be like, "Ooh, really? He did that?" And that's not even what you're thinking about in that instant. And you're like, "Oh my God, if you think that's okay, I definitely cannot work here." Right? So that's how I would approach workplace friendships in terms of the interview process. I would say it's almost like a pre-strategy.
Mhm. I know you, and I know you're a data geek, and I know that you like to measure things, and I know that you love metrics. So, I know you've said that happiness can be measured. What are we measuring, and what is the single most important indicator for us or in a team to really be able to benchmark if we are truly thriving?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So in terms of boiling it down to one metric, I think that's going to be difficult for me, right? There's not one particular metric. I mean, there's a number of surveys that have been conducted from everybody from Indeed to Oxford University that asks this question of like workplace engagement, right? Or work satisfaction. And what I try to do in my book is break down what that actually means, right? Because that's a really difficult question to unpack. So there's a number of indicators that workplace happiness is actually present. The number one that I think, especially in a team situation, because I think that's almost more difficult to measure than in a personal way, is this idea of psychological safety. And psychological safety, quite literally, is this idea that you are not afraid to speak up. You are not afraid to say what you want to say without fear of retribution, right? It's almost like healthy conflict, which I
Mhm.
think is the hallmark of a winning team. And so many times I will go into a workplace environment, like an organization, whatever it is, small, big, doesn't matter. And they will tell me, "Oh, we have a great culture here. We never argue. Everybody always agrees. There's no conflict. It's all perfect." And I'm like, "Oh, we got a problem." So that to me is the first one, this idea of around psychological safety. So that's the first real metric that I would say. The other one I would say, and so that would be kind of on the team side. And on the personal side, because I do think that this is key for personal workplace happiness, is the ability to have time to do deep work. So, in other words, you cannot be in a situation where you are jumping from meeting to answering emails to Zoom to this. That cannot be your entire day. There must be a block of time that you take out of your day, whether it's an hour, whether it's 2 hours, whether it's 20 minutes, here and 20 minutes there and 20 minutes in another place. I would rather see it contiguous, but it's okay if it gets broken up, where you can do deep thinking work. Because what that will actually get you to is this idea of progress. And I talk a lot about progress being essential to happiness. But really, what I'm trying to get at here in a very tangible way is a sense of purpose at work, right? If you feel progress, you feel purpose. So I would say the measure would be deep work, time for deep work on a personal level, and psychological safety on a team.
Mm, I love me some deep work. And that's also where I get excited because I'm in the flow, right? I can feel that even though, maybe 2 hours has gone by, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm deepening down in a specific area or exploring something. And I am super curious if people feel like their companies are allowing for deep work. So please, let us know.
Yeah,
You have access to me, and we would love to.
I would love to know too.
Yeah, and Jessica wants to know too. Okay, let's get extra sciencey and geeky and talk about some neuroscience. What is happening in our here noggin, our brains, that is chemically or cognitively shifting when we are moving from that state of surviving, stress maybe, to thriving? What is happening to us? What are the upsides
Sure.
to that from a health standpoint? Because how many hundreds and thousands of stories have we heard about people burning out, the exhaustion factor? You hear it all the time. I'm slammed, like everybody, of course, wearing it like a badge. So how do we start to understand the signals of both, right? Like I'm tipping over here and I'm not doing what my brain any help, and the side that says that I'm thriving.
Yeah. Okay. So, in terms of what's going on in your brain is really interesting. And there's so much work, like you said at the beginning, I'm not a super woo woo person, although I do love that my book is coming out on 11/11. Because I am a big 11/11 wisher, but I am not I'm not a super woo woo person at all. I'm really kind of very tangible and practical. But there is a lot of research around having a positive mindset and what that actually does to your brain. Okay, now what am I talking about when I say having a positive mindset? If you've listened to me at any point, I've spoken a lot about this idea of a joy journal, right? Writing down 3 things that brought you joy that day and why. Now, I am fully aware that this is another journal and everybody talks about gratitude journal and this journal and that journal. I am totally and fully aware of what I am saying. But what I'm really getting at here is the science behind it. And this is where we get into our brains. So when you are changing and shifting your mindset to actually see the good things that are happening to you, something is happening in your brain. Your neural pathways are now being rewired for happiness. Literally, no joke. They are getting wider and they are getting deeper so that you are able to experience and feel happiness on a deeper level. So that's the first thing that's happening. The second thing, they have done a number of studies that when people feel happier, when they have a positive mindset, when they are optimistic, their peripheral vision literally gets better. They can see more physically. You can physically see more. So not only are you figuratively seeing more, right? Able to come up with more solutions, but you are seeing more of the world, right? So that is another kind of piece of science that I absolutely love. And we've all heard about, the dopamine kick that kicks in when you're doing work that you love and when you're doing all that stuff. So what's happening in your brain is very real and very scientific. And I will now go back to all of the things that I said earlier around this 5-step framework that I talk about in the book. So yes, burnout is a real thing and it's happening to so many of us. But I think that if you go back to this 5-step framework, because what I say, and I do talks and everything else, I say that happiness is actually the antidote to burnout, right? So it's if we can live in a place where we're enjoying work, where we're satisfied, where we're engaged, it's the antidote to burnout. And that comes from excellent workplace connection, the ability to be realistically optimistic, to have a sense of progress and purpose in your work, to feel that you are someplace where there is trust, right? I keep going back to these things because that is the antidote to burnout. Having people that you can lean on, workplace relationships, antidote to burnout. Feeling like you're actually making progress, antidote to burnout. Feeling that, yes, you have problems, but there are solutions to problems, antidote to burnout. So all of this ties back very neatly in a bow around how you can have more happiness and get out of that burnout spiral. Now, I have a lot to say around that badge of busyness, but we could save that for another time.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you have these 5 pillars because everybody's looking to overcomplicate things, and this is very helpful in keeping it clear and simple. I really encourage all of us, I mean, myself included, to go through those 5 and just check yourself, because some of them may be things that you can't control, and some of them are easily things you can. And so at the end of the book, right, you start talking about how you can actually love your work, right? Like you can actually do this. If you had to drop one like final scientific pathway to get there, what would it be?
Okay, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say that, and this goes back to what you just said. The 5 pillars are not like you need every single one of those 5 pillars. That's another thing that I love about the book. It's not about you must have A, B, C, D, and E, because I will tell you, if somebody tells me I must have A, B, C, D, and E, I'm out. Like, I'm done. I need to know that I can customize it and make it work for me. And I'm not really someone who does C, but I actually really like E. So that's what I would say. What I want people to take away, if there's a key to happiness, and this goes back to our very first question, right? Is that this is all within your control. I'm giving you 5 steps in a framework. 5 steps that I believe every single one of those steps is essential to happiness, but we don't live in a Pollyanna world where I know that everybody has access to all 5 of those. But what I want everybody to do is take a piece from here and a piece from there and a piece from here and maybe leave 2 of them out because they don't resonate for you and they don't work for you. But I think that you can make this, and you can open the book. Like, this is not a book that needs to be read A to Z. You can open the book and just start to read, like, oh, this chapter sounds really interesting to me. I'm going to read about strategic optimism. So I want people to know that they can create their own happiness by this happiness buffet that I'm presenting. And you take the dishes that you like and you leave the stuff behind that doesn't work for you.
Thank you for that, because so many of us are we have the list and we think that we need to check all the boxes. And I also want to ask you, right? Because at different times you may have this thing all locked down and then you need, there is other things. So it's malleable. It's not like this is stuck in stone. Focus on the things that you can right now. And as you go into this job search, this season, this, time that could be very, very surprising, or maybe you knew it was coming, but now the reality is setting in, anchor yourself. Go back to these 5 and just pick one. I've told you this before, and some people know my story. I was diagnosed many, many, many years ago with cancer. And it was one of the happiest times in my life. And that's weird, right? I wasn't happy that I had cancer. I wasn't happy that I had a poop bag. I wasn't happy that I had to lose so much freedom in my life. But I worked with what I had, and collectively, my friends and all of that, were able to make it a really good time with a lot of laughter, a lot of really, really like uncomfortable jokes and things like that. But
But you know what? You're tapping into the framework right there, right? You did connection, you did purpose and progress, you did strategic optimism, right? See how these things they continue to come back.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and a little retail therapy too.
All for it.
Please, everybody, the link is below. Amazon, Jessica's site. Order this book now and do me a double solid. Get it for yourself and get it as a holiday present for somebody else, because I'm telling you, this thing is locked and loaded. And for those of you who listened, thank you. And for those of you who continue to come back and listen, thank you triple time. If you liked this show, please write a podcast review. We love them. We appreciate them. We're up to 162. My goal is 200 by the end of the year. So please help us reach that. It helps us so much to grow, and subscribe. All right. You can find Jessica also on LinkedIn. Amazing content, and her videos also fire. Jessica, Like forever and always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't wait to get to New York because I know that there's a big hug waiting.
I can't wait to see you, and thank you so much for having me, Lauren. Love you.
All right. Bye, y'all. See you next week. I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed, clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then.